CEO spilled coffee on a janitor and yelled. Then she saw what was in his wallet. It was 6:30 a.m. when Maria unlocked the supply closet and rolled out her mop and bucket. She'd been working as a janitor for the downtown skyscraper for 3 years now. The building belonged to Everlight Enterprises, one of the biggest tech firms in the city. Most mornings were quiet, and she liked it that way. Maria had just started mopping the marble floor in the lobby when the elevator doors pinged open. Out walked a tall man in an immaculate suit, typing furiously on his phone. She recognized him immediately. Alexander Grant, the elusive CEO of Everlight. She'd only seen him in company newsletters and news articles. He didn't see the wet floor sign in a blink. His Italian leather shoes slid across the damp marble. His hand flailed, and the steaming cup of coffee he was holding tipped forward, straight onto Maria. Hot liquid splashed across her uniform. She gasped and stumbled back. "Watch where you're going," Alexander snapped, his voice like ice. "Do you even pay attention to what you're doing? Unbelievable." Maria stood frozen, heart pounding. I'm sorry, sir. You're sorry. This suit costs more than your monthly salary." His words cut like glass. "Clean this mess up before the board arrives. And get yourself out of sight. I can't have people tripping over janitors." He stormed off without another glance, leaving a trail of sharp footsteps and spilled coffee behind. Maria bit her lip and knelt to mop the floor. Her hands trembled not from the burn of the coffee, but from humiliation. As she reached for the rag to wipe the splash off the nearby table, something caught her eye. On the floor lay a sleek black wallet, clearly dropped in his rush. She picked it up, ready to call out to him, but he was already gone. Out of habit, she checked the ID to confirm it was his before turning it in. Inside, she found the CEO's driver's license, a few crisp bills, and a worn, folded photograph. It was old, edges frayed. In it, a little boy stood in front of a peeling apartment door, wearing a hand-me-down coat. Beside him was a tired-looking woman in a janitor's uniform, the same color and style as Maria's. On the back, in faint ink, it read, "For Mom, one day, I'll make you proud." Maria's breath caught. The resemblance between the boy and the man who had just yelled at her was undeniable. She stared at the photo for a long moment before quietly tucking it back in the wallet. When Alexander returned, still on his phone, she stepped forward. "Sir, you dropped this." He froze, looking up. Their eyes met briefly, and for the first time, she saw something beyond the cold CEO mask. Something vulnerable. "Thank you," he said softly, taking the wallet. He opened it to check, and when his eyes landed on the photo, his expression shifted, shame, regret. Something unspoken. Maria hesitated, then said quietly, "Your mom must have worked hard." His head snapped up. For a heartbeat, he looked like a man stripped of all armor. She did. There was a long silence. The lobby felt heavier, yet somehow warmer. Alexander cleared his throat, glancing at the coffee stain on her uniform. "I shouldn't have yelled at you," he said finally, his voice low. That wasn't right." Maria gave a small nod. "It's okay. I know mornings can be stressful." "No," he said, shaking his head. "It's not okay." He pulled out a business card and handed it to her. "Come by my office later. HR will get you a new uniform and a raise. Consider it overdue." Maria stared at the card in disbelief. "Sir, that's not necessary." "It is," he interrupted gently. "She would have hated what I just did." He glanced once more at the photo in his wallet, then at her. "Thank you for reminding me who I am." And with that, the powerful CEO walked away, leaving behind not just a cleaned floor, but a moment Maria would never forget. It was still dark outside when Maria unlocked the heavy glass doors of the towering Everlight Enterprises building. The city lights reflected off the marble floor, and the familiar echo of her footsteps reminded her of the hundreds of mornings she had walked these halls. Maria, 42, had been a janitor for almost a decade. Life had taught her to keep her head down, work hard, and not expect much in return. A single mother to a teenage daughter, she took double shifts just to keep the lights on in their tiny apartment. This morning felt like any other until the elevator, DINGED. She had just started mopping near the lobby when the sound of expensive shoes clicked against the floor. A tall man in a charcoal gray suit strode out of the elevator, eyes glued to his phone. Maria recognized him instantly, Alexander Grant, CEO of the company. She had only seen him from afar, but his presence was unmistakable. Before she could call out about the wet floor, it happened in a blur. His polished shoes slipped on the freshly mopped marble. He stumbled, the paper cup in his hand tilting violently. Scalding coffee splashed across Maria's uniform and onto the floor. "Oh no," she gasped, flinching at the heat. Alexander caught his balance and turned sharply, his face hardening. "What the hell?" His voice cut through the empty lobby. "Are you blind? Do you even pay attention to what you're doing?" Maria froze, clutching her mop. I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't. Sorry," he barked, looking down at his now stained suit. "Do you have any idea how much this costs? I have a meeting with the board in 30 minutes, and I look like this because you can't do your job properly." Each word struck her like a blow. Her throat tightened. She wanted to explain, to tell him the floor needed cleaning before employees arrived, but the words wouldn't come. Alexander shook his head, muttering under his breath, "Clean this mess up and stay out of sight. Last thing I need is people tripping over janitors before the day even starts." He turned and stormed away, his footsteps sharp against the marble. Maria stood in silence, blinking back tears. She knelt down and began mopping, her hands trembling not just from the burn of the coffee, but from the sting of humiliation. That's when she saw it. A black leather wallet lay near the table, clearly dropped in his rush. She picked it up carefully, intending to return it. Out of habit, she opened it to check the ID before turning it in. Inside were sleek credit cards, a driver's license with his name, and a few crisp bills. But behind the polished exterior of wealth was something unexpected. A small, frayed photograph tucked into the corner. Maria gently unfolded it. The picture was old and worn, the colors faded. A little boy, no older than 7, stood in front of a rundown apartment building. He wore a second-hand coat a size too big, his shoes scuffed. Beside him stood a woman in a simple janitor's uniform, smiling despite the exhaustion in her eyes. On the back of the photograph, in faint handwriting, were the words, "For Mom. One day I'll make you proud." Maria's breath caught. The boy's face. She could see it now. The sharp jawline, the determined eyes. It was Alexander. For a long moment, she just stared at the photo. The same man who had just humiliated her had once been a little boy standing beside a janitor mother. The sound of footsteps broke her trance. Alexander had returned, still typing on his phone. "Sir," Maria said softly, stepping forward. "You dropped this." He looked up, startled. His gaze shifted to the wallet in her hand. He took it and flipped it open, his fingers brushing against the photo as if making sure it was still there. For the briefest moment, his expression changed. The mask of the powerful CEO slipped, revealing something raw and vulnerable. "Thank you," he said quietly. Maria hesitated, then spoke before she could stop herself. "Your mom. She must have worked hard." Alexander's head jerked up. Their eyes met, and she saw at the flicker of pain, memory, and something else. "She did," he said, after a pause, his voice lower now, harder than anyone I've ever known. Silence filled the lobby. The air felt heavy but warmer somehow. His eyes dropped to the coffee stain on her uniform. He exhaled slowly. "I shouldn't have yelled at you. That was wrong." Maria gave a small smile. It's okay. Mornings can be rough. No, he said firmly. It's not okay. He reached into his suit pocket and pulled out a business card, pressing it into her hand. Go to HR later today. Tell them I said to replace your uniform at a raise. Consider it long overdue. Maria blinked in surprise. Sir, that's really not necessary. It is, Alexander interrupted softly. His fingers brushed over the wallet again. She would have hated what I just did. His voice cracked slightly on the last word, and without another word, he turned and walked away. Maria stood alone in the lobby, holding the card and staring at the doors he had disappeared through. For the rest of the day, her hands felt a little lighter on the mop. Because sometimes, behind power and pride, there was still a heart. And that morning, she had reminded a CEO of the boy he used to be.